Hey guys, so it's got to that stage. The car is painted, the Raptor has gone nice and hard, left it for a few days, and it's time for the rebuild. So I've got to sort all the parts out. Everything needs cleaning, painting, which is going to be a mission, but bolting things on shouldn't take too long. A lot of bits I'm going to replace. The polycarbonate rear window kit, but we cut vents in the side, and I don't think I'm going to go that route this time, so I need some Makrolon, 4mm Makrolon for the windows. I'm just going to make my own this time. They were plastic for performance ones, but for the sake of it, I think I'm actually going to use some tinted perspex as well, just for the side windows. I think that'll look better. And the rear, obviously it'll be a half cut. I'm just going to overlap this very slightly and then pinch a bit so it creates a vent for the rear radiator. I think that would probably be enough airflow without needing the vents and all the pipe work through, which is sort of affecting the firewall and everything. So yeah, I think we'll try that and see what happens. Yeah, anyway, I need to tidy up in here because there is stuff absolutely everywhere again. I still haven't had the opportunity to use my new TIG welder. I need to put it back on the trolley again. I did try to swap them round. I wanted the TIG welder on the bottom and the MIG on the top, but the TIG doesn't fit on the bottom shelf. I still haven't decided whether I'm going to sort of mess around and modify the trolley or just put up with it for now until I've got more space so I can have two trolleys, one for each. I'm going to try and move into a unit soon, so I'll have more space because it is pretty limited in here. I mean, two of them trolleys would be sort of unnecessary in here. Yeah, so anyway, I'm going to have a tidy up and then decide which bits I'm going to bolt on first. So, anybody that questions my use of Raptor paint, this is the reason why. When you're working in a limited space like this, you can't be off it. Ideally, you'd have the car on the lift, put the engine on the subframe, drop everything in from the bottom. Because JZ's with a rear sump in a BMW is quite a tight fit. The other thing I've discovered, this floor with an engine crane is absolutely hopeless. It just doesn't roll, it sort of sinks into the floor and you can't move it, and had to jack the legs up and wiggle it about, and that probably didn't help with clattering the engine into the engine bay all over the place. But because I've used Raptor paint, I can give that a little bit of a rough up, squirt a little bit of matte black over it, and you won't even see that. So 1JZ in the hull. That is progress. The engine mounts are made nice and far back in the bay. Don't really want to try and go any further than that. That's about as good as it gets. It's sort of tight with the sump absolutely everywhere. There were some spacers we had to use underneath the actual engine mounts when we finished last time, because afterwards we discovered it was catching on the steering column. So yeah, I scalloped out the engine mount and that tucks in there nicely this time. So I don't think there was another reason we used the spacers to lift the engine. I think it was just purely down to that engine, the column on the mount. So now that's resolved, we should just be able to leave it like that. Anyway, the other thing I've got to do is make a new engine gearbox mount. The guy that bought the car off me, he put an M3 rear end on and had to have the prop rechopped. I think he measured the prop wrong, and when it arrived he discovered it wouldn't fit, so he modified the gearbox mount and moved the engine somehow. I'm not really sure. I wasn't there for that part of the process. When we originally built the car, it had a medium case stiffened shafts, and what Lee discovered when he took it out for the second time, first time it went to Swaffham where there was no grip, there was a problem with the car as well. I can't remember, something didn't work properly. He only got about sort of 4 or 5 laps there. Took it to Norfolk Arena and did a day in the wet. I wasn't there for that one. And then again, I wasn't there. He took it to Santa Pod. 265 Westlakes on the back, 1 clutch kick in 3rd gear, snapped both the shafts off clean in half. So they're clearly not up to the job. This thing was running 465 horsepower at 1.1 bar, I think, something like that. But with it's probably more to do with the tyres than it was the power, to be honest. The good news with that is I've got the large case rear end. Well, I actually got 2 M3 Evo rear ends, so that's something I haven't got to buy, which is a bit of a relief because they're quite expensive. But it needs adjusting to fit properly. So yeah, engine in. Hopefully no need for them little packing spaces anymore, and I can get underneath and have a look at the existing gearbox mount and see what needs to be done. So it's a new day. I got as far as dumping the engine and gearbox in, and that was it the other day. Still a little bit unwell, and I was recovering from a 2-day hangover, so I dumped it in and left. Anyway, continuing on, the next thing I'm going to do is clean the differential up. The differential's a mess, so I'm going to just degrease it and pressure wash it. The rear subframe's okay. It could do with a repaint, but it's under the car. It's tidy enough, that'll do. Bolt them 2 things together, get them in position, and then see if the modifications to the engine mount has pushed the engine back far enough so the prop shaft meets correctly. I think I said in the previous clip, the previous owner put the M3 rear end on, arranged the prop to be chopped and measured it slightly incorrectly. So I'd like to correct that rather than pack it out with washers how it was. It's only, I think it was 2 washers, so maybe a couple of mil, 3 mil, wasn't far. So I've just elongated all the holes in the engine mounts, both where it mounts to the chassis and where it mounts to the block. And hopefully that's just enough wiggle room to push it back far enough so the prop meets properly. If it doesn't, then I need to look at another method to resolve that situation, and then I can make the gearbox mount as well, because I'm sure that's probably in the wrong place. It's been chopped about and modified, not really sure why. So I think it's just probably easier to make a fresh one rather than continue to chop the old one around. Anyway, I'm going to get into pressure washing this differential. That's the first thing for today. So I've retrieved all the M3 bits from the storage shed down the bottom, and these are the selection of parts that I have. Both the diff cases look identical, so I'm assuming they're both M3 diffs. I would sort of go along with that theory because I actually have two sets of rear M3 trailing arms. They're all stamped with the M, so I'm under the assumption that means M3. I wasn't involved in the purchase, fitting or anything with these parts, so I don't really know what I've got. Looks like I've got 3 passenger side drive shafts. There's one in the driver's side. I can't get the nut off my impact gun. I've tried both the air impact gun, I've tried my battery impact gun, soaked it in WD-40, heated it up, tried a breaker bar and trying to sort of stand on the other end, and that nut is far too tight. I need a much more powerful impact gun to get that off, and then maybe the shaft will come out, maybe it won't. With BMWs, they do get seized quite regularly, so I'm not sort of overly confident about that. That's something we'll broach another day anyway. Yeah, that shaft is stuck in there. It's obviously in the driver's side trailing arm hub, but it only measures about a ½ inch shorter than the one that's marked M3 passenger side. And if I grab hold of it, or this one I should say, I can compress it so it is the same length as that. So do I actually have, no, that can't be a driver's side one or a passenger side one in the driver's side hub, because it won't come out. It's clearly been there a long time, and that's definitely the driver's side. By the time you flip it around and offer it up to the body, it is the driver's side. So are they actually driver's side shafts and marked wrong, or are they quite a similar length? The diff does look offset. It looks offset, well, it looks like the prop shaft mounts in the centre, and then the cups are offset to allow for the pumpkin, so which is standard sort of setup really. So yeah, if you've got more experience than me with this BMW stuff, please let me know in the comments how much shorter should one side be versus the other. Are they marked wrong? Do I need more shafts? Will they fit? Yeah, any tips on getting that shaft out without mutilating everything would be absolutely fantastic, because obviously with these parts being sort of quite valuable nowadays, I want to try and retain as much as I can. The trailing arms have already got poly bushes in, but everybody seems to suggest that the sort of spherical option is the way to go for a drift car, so I think I'll swap them out for spherical bearings. I'm not sure which arms I'm going to use. I don't think it really sort of matters too much. I mean, these ones have already got the bushings pressed out, so it might be favourite to use them. Yeah, they've all been pressed out there as well. So, well, this one has. The other one, yeah, they're all pressed out, so it's going to be far easier to use these shafts and sorry, these trailing arms. Not really sure what I'm doing with the rest of it. I suppose I'll keep the trailing arms as spares, because as I've proven with the E46, if you have a crash you can break them. Shafts, I think ultimately I'm going to go for the Wisefab 1500 horsepower shafts. Stick with the M3 rear diff, because I've never had the luxury of changing sort of diff ratios in the past, and these sort of sicky bulldog Winters things are ridiculous money. So maybe at a later date, but for the time being I think I'll sort of stick with what I've got. But But yeah, if you, like I said, if you know more about this BMW stuff, let me know in the comments. What shafts have I got here? Am I stuck? Am I going to be able to test the car on these? Are they completely the wrong shafts altogether? I mean, I haven't even tried them in the hub to see if they fit. I suppose that's the next step, really. Anyway, on to pressure washing these diffs. Right, so that doesn't seem ideal. Again, not really sure what's going on there. So, the subframe has got poly bushes. The stud sticks out of the body with a sort of nut end on it, with the front crowded all the way up as far as it'll go. The back still wasn't touching the body where it mounts. So I'm not sure whether the subframe is bent. It's got some sort of ugly welding situation going on here. It looks like it's been abused in the past. The other side seemed to just sort of slot in the hole and bolt straight up. This side, the actual hole was too far back, so I had to leave the front loose and sort of force the back in. Yeah, and then kind of crowd it up against the body so it's sort of under tension. So I'm not sure if that's right. I mean, I'll have to do some research and see what I can find. Maybe it is just a case that the top of the mount, where there's an aluminium dowel in between. So maybe I need to reduce the size of the aluminium dowel so the poly bush, the little nut up the top there, will pull into the poly bush so the poly bush can really tie up against the body. because it did seem like around about the same sort of distance at the back away from the body when the front was sort of crowded up quite tight. So maybe that would be the solution for that one. Again, if you know more about these things than me, please let me know in the comments. It'll save me a lot of head scratching. I think what I'm probably likely to do though is just measure the gap from the body at the top there and then take that much off the dowel so it can pull it all the way up. That seems sort of like a sensible solution. Anyway, for now at least, it's in position so I can put the diff in once I've cleaned it. Well, once it's dry, I have cleaned it, so I can get the distance for the prop shaft from the gearbox and make sure that all fits up properly. So that's the main target for today. So we're on yet another day. This video has been filmed over a few. The fudging around with the engine mounts has done the job. The prop shaft meets up now. It's not ideal. I'm not sure if it was like this originally or not. The prop shaft where it meets up with the Guibo isn't the perfect angle. There's sort of couple of millimeters gap at the top and it's tight at the bottom, which would sort of suggest that the engine needs to go down or the back of the prop needs to go up, but there's no way the engine can go any further down. It is literally nearly touching the subframe. I could modify the prop shaft carrier in the middle and maybe tuck it up a little bit further to the tunnel. But I believe from memory, I think I spoke with, when I had a prop built for my MX-5, that wasn't quite in line, and I spoke with Dave Mack Prop Shafts, and from memory I believe they said that a Guibo is rated up to a 30-degree deflection rate, and I think that would be within that tolerance. So maybe just bolt it up and see what happens. This must be a common scenario with a JZ in a 36 chassis, because you can't really sort of do much else. I mean, the engine is down as far as it'll go. It's a standard Sora rear sump. BMW 330D gearbox is quite a common kind of solution for the back of the JZ. So yeah, I think I'm gonna sort of label that up as is what it is, bolt it up, and hopefully it doesn't rip the Guibo up. In the meantime, I have moved all the parts from the storage shed I've got down the bottom into here, just to see what I've got, make a decision on which parts I'm going to use, which parts I'm going to upgrade, which parts I'm going to replace, and then start bolting bits on basically. Everything needs either cleaning or sort of reconditioning, painting, coating. Yeah, everything's quite a mess, but there is a really nice selection of parts here which will get me started. So the fan, that's a super posh twin speed 270 quid thing, I believe, originally. It seemed to keep the car cool, so I'll probably just use that. I may improve the cowling. Alternator, I need a high output because I'm using electric power steer and electric water pump, and I've attempted to do that on a standard alternator in the past, and it ends up cutting the spark because there isn't enough power. Starter motor, I'll replace that. There's no point using a manky old thing. I'll just buy an eBay jobby. I'm going to use a standard inlet manifold. I'll never see, unless there's a space issue with the vehicle you're putting it in, like on the MX-5, the standard inlet manifold is fine. I don't think you need to upgrade them until you get somewhere like 700-800 horsepower or something. And I've not had much luck with the aluminium throttle bodies in the past either. They tend to sort of, as they get hot, change. They don't idle properly and stuff, and a bit stickier, just not very good. So I'm going to use a standard throttle body as well. Got a nice little battery mount that can go in the black fuel tank. That may end up being a bit small depending on what turbo and power I end with, but at some point I'm probably going to need to upgrade to an FIA proper fuel cell, so that will do for now. I'm going to take the filler attachment thing off this one and put on that, so I can run a hose off this up to a more sensible position to fill. I've got a Cold Fusion nitrous bottle with where is it? It's probably down here somewhere. Yeah, a nitrous solenoid. That looks old as the hills, so I'm not sure whether I'm gonna like keep the bottle and just use the bottle, get a new solenoid, or not bother with any of that for now. I am still on a standard engine, so I mean that's going to limit the power I run from this thing. It is a good one. This came out of a Sora with, I I don't know, 60,000 kilometres on it or something. It hadn't been run for years, which isn't ideal, but with how old they are now, that's probably the best possible sort of scenario. Compression test was bang on across all 6. So it is a good one. It's got a set of BC264 cams in it, but apart from that, is completely standard. So I suppose really I'm looking at, I don't know, pushing at 600, 650 brake. I'm quite happy to push it, to be honest. Saying that's not an issue. If it blows up, it blows up. I'll have to have it built, maybe a 2J bottom end. Who knows? Anyway, that's good for now. I know it works. I know it's got good compression, and we will try and blow it up with power. Mishimoto intercooler. That's good enough. That'll do. Got some nice IRP caster adjustable lollipop bushes. Oil cooler for the power steering, that can be used. Catch can, probably buy another one that's a bit battered, and that's sort of the theme for the engine bay is going to be black, so it'd be nice to have a black one. Turbo Smart fuel pressure regulator. The gauge, the oil in the gauge looks a bit manky. I mean, it's normally clear, but that is just a temporary sort of set up gauge, so I'll just get another one of those. Got a Grams Performance 20044 set up with the fuel filters. I'll probably just take the filters out, clean them up, but they're all hardly used. Did one season of King of Europe on those in the MX-5. They were recycled from that car. We have got Grams Performance again. I think they're thousands. Yeah, 1000cc Grams Performance injectors. They're up to the job. Cheap Chinese fuel rail. I think I'll just replace the fittings so they're a little bit tidier, but that's good to go. I've got the rubber water hose for the rear mount radiator. I think what I'm going to do, because I'm running an electric water pump this time, I'll either buy or make some AN20 fittings to fit the block, and then come off that with braid probably down to there, and then I would imagine go rubber hose underneath. I'm not really sure. I'd have to price up braid right to the back, but it seems a shame not to use the rubber hose because I've got it if it's going to save some money. Yeah, Bosch Link oxygen sensor, that was brand new as well. Got some genuine, all the coil packs were brand new and genuine. I'm not sure if they're like Delphi or Bosch or what, but they came from Euro Car Parts and they were one of the top brands, so that's good. This is the big question, and I'm really not sure what I'm doing with this. So I've got a Japspeed V2 manifold and a old Garrett journal bearing turbo. I don't think it says what it is on there. I think it's a GT3571, but I might be wrong. It might be a 3076. Anyway, that's literally old as the hills journal bearing thing, but it had been freshly rebuilt by Universal Turbos before it went on the car originally, and it has done a dyno session and 3 parts practice days. So it's still a sort of fresh unit, although it is sort of old technology and it's been kicking about forever. But the problem with this, because this car was built on a budget, the Japspeed V2 manifolds, due to the wastegate dump design, suffer really badly with boost creep. So as we're on a budget, we didn't want to spend more money. This was also a sort of factory second. The holes were slightly in the wrong place, So just opened them all up a little bit and it bolted on perfectly, but we got that for like next to nothing. I think it was £100. So, and it was new. So on that basis, we thought it would be an idea to just blank off the wastegate hole and put the wastegate directly on the side of the exhaust housing. Now, it supplied absolutely amazing boost control. Didn't have any issues with boost control at all. This was grief. I had to take the exhaust housing off, heat it up in the oven, weld it while it was hot, then put it back in the oven again and cool it down in stages, because that's cast, and cast is all sorts of problems when you weld it. The situation this sort of creates is, if I want to upgrade, I need a manifold, a turbo and a wastegate all in one go. With everything else I need for this car, that's an expense I don't need when I've got components that work. But I really would like to make a new exhaust and have everything tidy, so I've got to decide whether I'm going to stick with this kind of setup. I mean, it made decent power. I think it was 465 brake at 1.1 or 1.2 bar, something like that. There was very little lag from the turbo. I hadn't driven the car, but watching from the outside, Lee could sort of drop third gear and pick up the throttle without a clutch kick, and it would just spin the wheels up again. So we spent a lot of time port matching everything as well. I got the die grinder out and literally port matched absolutely everything, which seemed to make a big difference, to be honest. So I'm not really concerned about the spool. It'll spool in time, no problem at all. I'm concerned about the sort of peak power level more than anything, and the fact that these components are old. I mean, this precision wastegate I bought end of 2011, and that's done plenty of work. It's been reliable, I haven't had any issues with it, but it's old. I'm sort of quite conscious of that now. And one of the threads as well, I think this one is a little bit spongy, so I don't want to take the lines off it. I know it's just not ideal, so that I definitely need to make a decision on. I mean, the other thing with the TIG welder, if I can figure out how to use the TIG, I could actually modify the manifold, maybe improve the wastegate dump situation so it doesn't boost creep. So then I can just buy a turbo to bolt on. Could even use that wastegate for now, and replace it at a later date, which would keep the budget sensible. So the main thing I'd like to change is the turbo, just purely because I'm conscious it is such old technology now, and bolting like the latest Pulsar on here would make a huge difference. So yeah, as far as these manifolds go, I had a Japspeed V1, the real cheap Chinese thin steel nasty things, on my original S13. It was on there for 3 years. At one point I had a whole set HX30 hanging off at the biggest exhaust housing one, which weighed a ton, and I never had any problems with it. What I found with these manifolds, once they do the first couple of heat cycles, they potentially crack. You weld them up and they're fine from that point forward. So I'm not particularly concerned about the actual quality of this manifold. They're a lot better than the V1, and I never really had any problems with the V1. Also with these manifolds, the manifold design it's not such a huge factor. I changed from the Japspeed V1 to a 6 boost, thinking I was going to get some massive improvements due to the sort of overall manifold design and the fact the Japspeed one was quite poorly designed. When I put it on the car, had to go to be sort of remapped to suit the new manifold. The rest of the setup was identical, and I found it needed a load of fuel up the top end. When I drove the car, it felt like I'd lost about 30 pound-foot of torque low down. The spool was a little bit later, but it made a ton more power up the top, made an extra 50 horsepower, 50 pound-foot up top. With drifting, for drag racing, brilliant. With drifting, I think I'd probably I'd choose the torque lower down. So with these free-flowing manifold designs, what you gain in one respect, you lose in another. So yeah, I'm not overly concerned about that. The actual manifold itself would be fine. So that's a decision I need to make at some point. And I suppose I would have to lose the wastegate if I'm selling the turbo. I'd need to supply it with the wastegate as a package, or it's pretty useless as is, to be fair. So yeah, turbo, wastegate, or just bolt it on and send it. Not really too sure. Next bits, what have we got? They're seized onto the discs, so I think they're just sort of standard 6-pot front brakes. I don't think they're anything particularly special. Don't know though. They've got a bit of yellow on them, like the M3 rears. Let me know if you know in the comments, are they M3 calipers, or are they just standard 6-pot BMW stuff? If they're, it might just be that this was, yeah, that's probably just had the M3 rears sat on the top of them. So I've got M3 rear calipers, the pistons are completely seized. There is a company on eBay that reconditions them, so I'll probably just send them off and have them reconditioned. I want to run dual calipers on the back, so I'll need another set of calipers for the rear. The fronts, if they're just BMW 6-pot, we'll just buy some new ones. Need new discs all the way around as well. Rear spring perchers, they need cleaning up. Nothing wrong with them, they can go straight on. BC coilovers, they're all leak-free, decent condition coilovers. They just really need a good clean up. They've got my funky top mount arrangement to offset the top of the strut to keep the camber in a sensible position. The steering angle kit I made is fantastic. It serves a purpose perfectly. I don't think there's any need to do anything with that other than clean it up and bolt it back on again. Yeah, steering arms, I'll probably get new track rod ends, because the ball joints in them feel a little bit sort of sloppy, but the rest of them, they're fine. They can just be bolted back on again. So yeah, this is the selection of parts. Everything needs to be cleaned, and I can slowly get round to bolting everything back on again. Anyway, that's it for this video. It's been a little bit sort of scrappy, little bits and bobs here and there, because I've just been filming as and when I've had the time. If you watch the videos regularly, please click the subscribe button. It's really helpful. And yeah, we'll see you all soon.